happens when your expectation aligns with God's plan for your life? It all starts with desire. And it leads to various outcomes, each with a lesson to be learned. Sometimes the lesson is trading up the good for the great. Sometimes the lesson is simply a redirected cause or purpose. And sometimes the lesson is just about timing. First, I'm going to share with you a time in my life when the lesson was trading up the good for the great. This was an internship class I was a part of from 2005 to 2006 here in Aramark, Kansas City. I was one of 8 selected to be a part of the Aramark program. However, the Aramark internship was not my first choice. You see, this is how it works. When you graduate with a bachelor's degree in dietetics, you then apply for internships, and you can apply to as many as you want, but you have to rank each program that you apply to, and each program ranks their applicants, and by computer matching, you're matched with a program. So I applied to 4 or 5 different internships throughout the Midwest, and I ranked as my first choice the prestigious, stipend-based Mayo Clinic dietetic internship up in Rochester, Minnesota. I ranked as my second choice the Aramark dietetic internship here in Kansas City. However, I expected to get my first choice, so I had my heart set on the Mayo program. Well, as you can see here, I ended up in Kansas City. I was matched with the Aramark program. And I tell you what, I realized it was a much better fit. Instead of getting caught up in the image of a prestigious program that would have left me stressed and frustrated, I ended up getting the best experience possible that was a much more diverse program. I got to visit several clinics, hospitals, and schools all throughout Kansas City, and I got to find my true passion as a supermarket dietitian without the pressure of a stipend and only being focused on one area in clinical dietetics. I also met my husband. I love Kansas City, and my family's still only a short drive away up in Iowa. Plus, if you don't know this about me yet, I strongly dislike the cold. So how would I have ever survived the negative 40-degree temperatures up in Minnesota? There are many more reasons I could give, but to sum it up, I'm so glad that I traded in the good for the great. Another expectation or a lesson that I learned from my expectation meeting God's plan is that sometimes my expectation for one purpose is redirected to another purpose. 5 years ago, we rescued a Vizsla puppy out of a trash compactor. You heard right, a trash compactor. This was outside of the apartment that we lived in. I had just come back from running, and I decided to take the trash out. I started hearing this yipping and whining, and I eventually realized it was coming from down inside the compactor. Fortunately, we were able to pull him out, and as you can see here, he's really skinny, but thankfully he wasn't bruised or hurt. So we brought him inside, we gave him some food and water, and we did what you're not supposed to do. We named him Buster, and we became very attached to him. We've always wanted a dog, but it wasn't the best decision for us to keep him because we lived in a small apartment and we were hardly ever home. But I thought this was God's way of saying, you know, you found him, you rescued him, so you get to keep him, you know, I'm entrusting you to care for him. So we tried to justify keeping him, but we ended up handing him over to a no-kill animal shelter. Stay with me. A year later, I run into a girl at a bookstore, and we get to talking. I find out that she works at that animal shelter, so I proceed to tell her the story of us rescuing a puppy out of a trash compactor. Well, she looks at me and says, "Was it a Vizsla?" Long story short, she ends up getting me in touch with a family that adopted Buster, who they named Scout. This family already had one Vizsla, and they live on a farm. So Scout has a companion and all the space to run and play. So I'm really glad that the purpose of us rescuing Buster, or Scout, wasn't so that we could keep him for ourselves, but so that we could truly give him a loving home and a happy life. I still want to keep him though. And sometimes the lesson I learn is just about timing. This Christmas, we got to spend time with both of our families. On the left there, that's our 2-year-old niece on my side, And on the right, that's our 3-year-old niece on Jeremy's side. Aren't they just adorable? And that's a snow angel that I taught my 3-year-old niece how to make. So my desire for this Christmas was obviously to spend time with both of our families, just to be with them. And I also expected to enjoy lots of laughs and good food and gifts. But did any of you expect a gift that you didn't end up getting? Who wants to admit it? Show of hands. Did any of you go out and buy it? Well, I didn't receive a specific gift that I desired for on Christmas, but I didn't go out and buy it. I learned that it wasn't necessarily a never situation, just not now. Because I know that what I expect, even though I didn't get what I expected and desired on Christmas, that it wasn't a never situation, I still expect this gift because I know that this desire was put on my heart by God, and I know it's in God's plan for me to have this gift. So even though it wasn't in my timing, it's always in perfect timing. Arriving in July, we're having our first baby. Thank you.
I saw her face, but oh my gosh.